You're in?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, my apologies. We had a miscommunication. I'm moving this morning and Dave's in the car, so we all thought each other were doing it. Okay, thank you everyone for coming on. I apologise. We'll keep it as a quick one this morning. Have we got Stewie O'Brien on this morning? Thank you, Stu. I thought what we wanted to do this morning is we wanted to go through, as the market's changing, and not a lot of people have, or there's some new people on here that haven't experienced a changing market. I thought that we were having a conversation yesterday, Stu, about buy work, and old school buy work. And I think there's people on here that can relate to that, like Greg Bates, like Heath, like David Plews, that have been doing it for quite a while. And I wanted to talk around that today, if we could, Stewie.
No worries. I think, in this changing market, we sort of got to go back to the old school and get, I was saying to Jake, we've got to get him back in the car. Jake had a heart attack at that. But, it's spending that time, it's building those relationships and really, when you meet a buyer, they're like gold. So for me, it's showing them everything. And then also sort of getting an understanding of what they're looking for, and then looking at other options as well. Probably the biggest thing I think starts with knowing the product, knowing the market. So, know what you're selling. And then when you start talking to those buyers, you're starting to get that feel of what they're looking for, because as everyone knows, they might be thinking they want a 3-bedroom house in Port Macquarie and end up buying a 5-bedroom house in Lake Cat Eye. Like, it all sort of changes, but building that relationship with the buyer is the key there. As I said, we've got 16 open homes over this week, and Susie's helping me there do some, and if there's buyers out there, we're going to find them. So from a vendor's point of view as well, they know you're trying harder than anyone else. That's probably getting back to that building relationships. We forget about it when we're so busy, and we just keep, there's another buyer, there'll be another buyer now, there'll be another buyer. But like, we did 9 open houses last week and we met 5 different people. Like, that's a sort of tough market. Yeah. So,
and let's talk about that. So, Stu, I'm coming through. A buyer is coming through your open, and you've got 9 opens, and I know most of you are feeling the same way at the moment. You've got a lot of, you've got tons of opens, not meeting a lot of buyers. So you're meeting 5 people at an open. What are you doing with that buyer when they walk through the door?
5 people in 9 opens. That's it. Yeah. Not 5 groups. Yeah. So basically, you've got that one-on-one time. It's like a private inspection a lot of the time. So, you're getting that understanding, you get that background about them. You really start to find out everything about them. And it becomes that private inspection realistically, where you have that chat while you're walking through, and you've got that product knowledge about the house because you've done all that groundwork leading up to listing the house. You know everything about that home. You know what your competition is, and you know what else is sold in the marketplace. But by having that conversation, then, I always take every brochure of every property we've got listed. We've got our little booklet down here, which is our property guide, and I'll start sort of talking about different houses with those buyers, based upon what we were just chatting about. This one could suit. Oh, is it open today? No, but let's see if we can get you an inspection, or we can do it Monday, or whatever it might be. But always leading to, for me, it's always about leading to other options, but also, making those appointments. I had 4 different buyer inspections yesterday. I'm not bragging or anything, but it's just creating those appointments more and more, because we all think we're busy. We're all doing things. We're all doing stuff. But at the end of the day, all we've got to do is list a house, find a buyer, negotiate, and sell it. So all the other stuff can happen at any point. There's plenty of listings out there, I think, at the moment. And every other agent, if we all worked in together, which we do, I think, pretty well, it's that cross-selling, Plusie's selling one of, Brendan's listings or whatever it might be. But that buyer management is gold, because in 5 to 7 years' time again, that person, potentially may sell. They may buy through someone else, but they see that, that Heath really looked after him and he's the best bloke in the world. Like, the guy that sold him the house, they got no idea who he was, but Heath, like, he really told them about the area. He sold he knew everything. He's the bloke he's going to list with in the future.
Mm. And would you say that that's how over the years you've built a lot of your career? Is doing that or buyer work? I mean, I've
100%.
seen you with buyers before. You're pretty you're pretty incredible when it comes to buyers and pre-qualifying. I'd love to talk to you around pre-qualifying and then because buyers at the moment are so non-committal at the moment. You mentioned that, you did 4 buyer inspections yesterday. How are you generating those appointments?
So,
I'm sorry to add on to that, because we can all sit here, right, and say, oh, well, that property is overpriced or there's no buyers out there at the moment. How are you getting buyer appointments to then condition your vendors to get price adjustments? Let's talk about that.
So with regard to, I think the biggest thing is a lot of out area buyers are conditioned to just go through open homes. I think when that hot market, especially in, those city areas, they're always, if you don't come to the open home, you won't get to see it. Like, the number one thing we say in any email inquiry, we talk about, if they don't provide us a number, we can't ring them, of course, but we do ring them. So rather than just responding straight with an email, it's like, make those calls. And then, if they're not, answering, we send them an email. Hey, we just tried to give you a call. Here's some information on the home. It is open this Saturday. However, we've got, a number of times during the week where we could actually show the home. You just let us know a time that suits and we can arrange it with the owner, that sort of thing. So opening up to those private inspections from the start. And then, if I'm having a conversation, someone rings me and says, look, I've had a chat to the owner. They're happy to show us this afternoon. If you like, we can make that happen. We've got some time. So keep on offering that private inspection, because as you know, you get that relationship built with the buyers. And then the owners, if you're not bringing people through during the week, all they're thinking is you're relying on open homes to find buyers. And then they're saying, well, what are you doing? You're not really doing anything other than just doing open homes. It's that communication with the vendor. Hey, I just had a chat to Jake, or I just had a chat to a fellow about your home. He's looking at coming up next week. I'll keep you updated. But then make yourself a note to give them a call. It's all well and good to say that, but then you need to give yourself a note saying, hey, call Jake about that conversation we had last week. Because they remember it. You may not remember it because you've done 10,000 other things in between, but having that little note to say, look, I followed up those people that haven't rang me back, or good news, we're coming through this afternoon if that's okay, sort of thing. So But that communication, because once you start building that relationship with the buyer, they've looked at more homes than you. They know the market potentially better than you in some cases. And even if they buy something else, it's invaluable feedback to the vendor by saying, look, they bought the home down the road, even though it was a similar price, it had that extra bedroom. And what they really liked was the living spaces were bigger, and they felt yours probably wasn't quite as good a home. Do it in a nice way, but, it allows you to get those price reductions as well, because it's genuine feedback.
Well, that's exactly right. And there's always an easier way to condition vendors when it's not me, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, it's the buyer, or the buyer said this, the buyer said that. So you're backing it up with people coming through, because it's all well and good, asking for a price reduction. And Dave talks about this as well. It's, have you earned the price reduction? And how do you earn the price reduction? Well, it's by doing qualified buyer appointments or getting people through the door, right?
Yeah, and it's genuine. It's, if they see you're working as hard as you possibly can for them as well, it's a two-way street. Like, you can't keep doing open homes. You can't keep showing buyers and all the buyers are saying it's too dear. It's having that critical conversation at the end of the day and saying, look, what do you want to do? Do you want to sell, or you're happy to sit on the market for the next 3 years? Because, at least where you're going as well.
No, I completely agree. And so what are some of the other things at the moment that you're doing to try and generate buyer appointments or buyer activity
Mate,
on
I
property?
stand out on Ocean Drive with a sandwich board, whapping that around. Look, we're just trying to mix up open house times, with afternoon open homes during the week, which, last Thursday we did one at 5 o'clock. We got people through that. And I think the critical thing is having that hot buyer list. So when something comes on the market, whether it be with you or with someone else in the office or like another agent, it's just giving them that call just to say, just letting you know that 20 Smith Street's just come on the market. Based upon what we've been chatting about, I think it's an absolute cracker. It's not listed with us, but it's listed with whoever. If you need any more info, let me know. So, it's more, it's as important at the moment to find those hot buyers and spend the time with them as it is with your vendor. Like, as I said before, we get caught up in all the other stuff, but realistically, it's two things is all you've got to do. So
That's interesting. So you even, an agent of your caliber doing, 100 plus deals a year, you still work on a hot buy list?
Yeah, look, I probably don't work it as good as I used to, purely because we've come out of that hot market. But I've definitely started to do it again, like pretty heavily, and knowing who you as soon as you see something pop up, it's, as I said, it's like knowing your market and then giving them a call. Yeah, definitely. It's like it's the only way to go. If you haven't got that and knowing who your people are that want to buy today, it's just throwing a dart at the dartboard, and I'm bloody terrible at darts, so I need to know what's going on.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. So then let's talk about then. So you've got the buyer through the door, and you're pretty good at this as well. They're 50-50, or they're iffy, or they're trying to play coy at the moment. What's your next steps in trying to get commitment from a buyer at the moment?
Look, I always ask what they've looked at, how it compares, what they like about the house, what they don't like about the house, and offer solutions. Like, there's always a solution to something. If it needs a full rebuild, well, that's not the right house for someone. But there's always ways and means, and it may be that they need, they're not going to buy it because it needs a little bit of work done. Well, have the trades in the background that can come and give you a quote. I've got a great list of people who sort of support me, and I'll just ring them and say, hey mate, could you have a look at this for me tomorrow? I've got some buyers that are pretty keen, but they're a bit hesitant on this. Can we work through that? So it's offering solutions all the time, I think, and getting to commit. Like, even if they say, oh, it's not bad, but it's too dear, so what would you pay? I don't care. I don't care what the initial offer is. It doesn't matter to me. But at least if I'm getting an offer, I know they've got interest. And then,
okay.
if we can then negotiate back and forth with the owner, I go, I wouldn't pay any more than 500,000. Next thing you know, they've just offered 6. So, at least if you can engage with an offer, you've got that opportunity to negotiate. That's the key.
Amazing. Okay. Anything else? Any other tips of gold that you want to add to this?
Get them. Look, I think it all comes down to relationships and giving that understanding of what they're looking for. So I think, people laugh about getting them in the car, and people think you're a freaking stalker if you offer it to them sometimes, but it is a really good way. Even just, we have vendor meetings and all those sorts of things. Why don't we have if you've got a hot buyer, why don't we sit down and have a coffee with them, have a chat? Why don't we get them in the car? And as you're driving around, everyone who's been in real estate for longer than 5 or 6 years knows when you got them in the car, you're talking about what's sold, you're selling them on the area, you become that expert. It just makes it so much easier for people to pay that extra 20 or 30 grand when you build that relationship.
I completely agree with you. There's nothing easier. And I remember even when I was selling, and a lot of people would say to me, oh, how did you get an increase on the floor? Or there are only one buyer. How did you do that on the floor? I'd say, well, it's the trust that I built with them over the 3-week campaign or 4-week campaign, that when I go up to them and say, I need an extra 5 or I need you to do this so that we can try and get the deal done, they know that I'm trying to work for them because I've built that rapport with them. And, you know, you can't, there's very many people that I've met that can go up on an auction room floor that haven't met a buyer that can try and negotiate with them. So really, you've got to put in, or even doing a deal beforehand, you know, by putting in that work and that rapport with the buyer, when it comes time to really asking them for that extra 5 or 10, they know that you're doing everything that you can to try and still get the property for them.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Batesy, anything you want to add in there? I mean, you've been doing this 1,000 years as well, and a very, you know, a very high performer in the group. Talk to me about what you're doing with private appointments right now.
Well, that's the key, as Stu said. You know, I think you've got to build that worth with your vendor to show that you are trying to get private appointments. As Stu also said, you can't just rely on open homes. I like what Stu said about getting them in the car and building rapport. That's what it's going to get back to, guys. I like to say I like to hijack them. You know, especially if they're thinking that they want to buy in the salubrious part of Shelley Beach or something like that, and then you say, look, can I hijack you for 30 minutes? Come and have a look at this other house. And 8 times out of 10, they fall in love with the house that's over the other side of town, you know. So you've got to look outside the square with buyers. I think that's
I agree.
the big thing.
And because there's so far and few at the moment, they're like gold, right? So you want to try and want to try and sell them something rather than them going somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think the art of a real estate agent in this climate now is getting the appointment with the buyer. That's the art.
And that's exactly right. I agree. Heath, anything you want to add? I mean, you did 6 deals last week with probably 6 buyers in your marketplace right now. You know, there's not many wanting to buy up there. What are you doing? How are you ransacking everyone from other agents, dare I ask?
Look, I do agree with everyone there. I call the kiddies, you know, the child lock, buyer's lock. I'll put them in the back seat and they can't get them out of the car until they buy a house. I do, and I'm also a believer of starting the car and waving them goodbye. I like being the last person, so I sell them the house. But I think being aware of everything that's on the market. I mean, I saw one last month where I didn't have it listed, so I built a rapport with these people in 35 minutes, and then I put them to lunch. So I put them out to pasture for 10 minutes, bought them a coffee. Then I went and I then went and knocked on the door and listed the property and sold it. Like, you know, I mean, that's you got to know everything and what's going to make them make a decision straight away. So I think it's as Stu said and Batesy, you know, get him in the car, build up the rapport, and it's, you know, they will trust you, and you know, you'll be successful at that.
Well, the reality is at the moment, I think everyone would agree with me on the phone right now. If you're meeting a buyer at the moment, they want to buy a property. They're not looking. They're not tire kickers. They're not decided. If you're buying right now and you're in the marketplace, you want to buy something. So they're either going to buy something from you or they're going to buy something from someone else.
I think it's important that your vendors are really, really aware also that we don't have 4 buyers per property. We may only have 1. And you're going to come back to the stage where, like I've seen properties years ago that have been on the market for 1,000 days. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, you know, I've seen that shit happen. So, but now, you know, it's, you know, you've got to sit there and make sure your buyers or your vendors know that offer, if it's within your range or above your range, mate, you got to wrap it up. We've got one at the moment where, you know, the range is 1.1 to 1.2. I have a buyer at 1.2 right now, cash, and they're struggling putting this over the line. And that's not my listing, but like, we've got to sit there and I'm trying to work through that problem now. But you know, because you did it quick within 2 weeks, no, it's because you've done it well. That's what you've got to, because you could be sitting back there in 6 months' time and going, shit, fuck, I should have taken that 1.2.
I agree. Cluesy, anything you want to add?
Not really. I think we've got to listen and look for tools that are out there in the marketplace. An example of that was with we battled to get a price reduction on navigators, and we knew it's probably sitting somewhere between $950 and $990, and it's been on the market for $1 million plus. We utilised the stats that Mark gave us yesterday, and she's based in the Philippines. We sent those stats to her, and we got a price reduction, not as much as we wanted, but $970 to $1 million. So I think we've just got to utilise all the tools that are available to us. I think if it's stats and they're independent, let's utilise those to manage the vendors. And I agree with what all the others have said. We've just got to basically go back to servicing the buyers and giving them everything we can to basically build that trust. And I like that comment that Stewie made. Any offer means there's interest. And I think if they do place an offer and it's low, at least we know there's interest and we can work them up from there.
Absolutely.
And worst case scenario is if we do get an offer that doesn't meet the vendor's expectations, at least the vendor hears that offer, and basically, if we let that buyer go, at least it's dented the armor, so to speak.
I completely agree.
Price reduction as well. You know, if they're going to negotiate, at least it gives you that chance to get a price reduction too.
Exactly. I agree with that as well. And I would be using buyers at the moment. Even if there isn't much interest in your property, we'll get price feedback from them, get feedback from them so that you can take it back to your vendors. Because what I'm hearing at the moment is from a lot of vendors, well, we haven't had any buyer feedback. Well, you've had buyers through the door. Just because they don't like the property, get their price feedback and take it to the vendors. It's the best way to get price reduction.
Another thing I just fell upon, I probably knew it, but I didn't really know it. I basically spoke to the vendor. I was at a listing presentation on Granite Street the other day, and I don't know how it came about. We spoke about Mondays, and I just said, look, I protect Monday mornings between 8 and also 12 o'clock. And I said, that is my buyer follow-up. And I just think it set a perception that you've got a routine. And they said, shit, that's great. Okay, and you won't disturb that Monday morning. And I said, no, I won't. And I think it's important that they realise that we've got processes and we do things, you know, and it shows that we're actually working and we've got systems behind the scene.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lise, you commented something. Do you want to talk about, come on quickly? Where are you, Dicko? Oh, I thought I saw you. Oh, no audio. Okay. She said, on people who give the most honest feedback, buyers not interested in the property. Okay, I don't really know what that means, please. We'll keep going. And does anyone else have anything that they want to add? Any questions for Stu and what he's doing at the moment? No, amazing. Well, thank you everyone for coming on. I apologize for the muck around this morning. As you can see, I'm mid-move, so it's all happening.
By the way,
thank you.
Thanks, Stewie. I've got that, mate. I've got your notes. Okay, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for coming on. Enjoy the day out there.
Thanks, Heath.
Bye.